Welcome to MasterMinds Lessons in Leadership. I'm joined by my co-host, Peter Linneman, where we discuss the intersection of strategy and leadership, which is at the vortex of what we feel makes all great companies great. And joining us today is Bill Rudin, who is the co-chairman and CEO of Rudin Management. We're going to ask Bill to do a little bit more of an introduction of his company, but as I understand it, was founded in 1925. The third and fourth generations of the company are now running the company, and Bill has not only been the chairman of the Real Estate Roundtable, but as I understand it, is current chairman of the Real Estate Board of New York.
My term ended at the end of last year, so.
Oh, did it? All right.
I'm chairman.
You looked happy, Bill. You looked happy.
Right. Well, anyway, typical of me, I'm a little bit out of date. But Bill, why don't you give some of our viewers a little bit more background on the company, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Well, as you mentioned, the business started by my grandfather in 1925, so we're coming up on 100 years, which is just an amazing. When you think about it, that our business has been around for 100 years, and it really started with his father, who was an immigrant from Russia, who came to New York in the late 1880s with nothing in his pocket. He came through Castle Clinton, which was in Battery Park, because that was the immigration depot at that time. And he started on the Lower East Side. He left Russia because he couldn't do two things. He couldn't practice his religion, he was Jewish, and he couldn't own real estate because he was Jewish. Oh. And he came over to seek economic and religious freedom, a very similar theme that goes on in our country today. And it was the American dream for him. And he had a dry goods store, and he started with nothing. And he always wanted to own real estate. And one day, his attorney came to him and said, "Louis," his name was Louis Rudinsky, "I've got a building for you." And a few months before, John D. Rockefeller had come into his store, dry goods store, making sure that Louis was selling his kerosene. There was an oil war going on, and Mr. Rockefeller would leave his office at 26 Broadway in Lower Manhattan and take his horse and carriage uptown, and he stopped on Christie Street where Louis had his store. And my great grandfather asked him, "Mr. Rockefeller, first of all, yes, I'm selling your kerosene, but where do you live?" Because I live on 54th Street. So fast forward a year or so, and the attorney came, "I've got a site, a building for you." He says, "Where is it?" And he goes, "On 54th Street." He goes, "I'm going to buy it." And the guy goes, "Well, don't you want to see it?" He goes, "No. If 54th Street's good for Mr. Rockefeller, it's good for Louis Rudinsky." What Louis did not understand, though, was Mr. Rockefeller lived on West 54th between 5th and 6th, and this was on East 54th between Lex and 3rd, and it was literally on the wrong side of the tracks because Park Avenue was a open cut for the Metro North and Grand Central Railway, and but he bought it anyway. This was in 1905. In 1907, there was a terrible market crash, famous crash where J.P. Morgan brought all the banks together and saved the U.S. economy, but all the tenants moved out. So Louis brought with his wife Rachel and his 9 children. He had 9 children. One of them, my grandfather Sam, and he moved the whole family into the building. His children went to public school around the corner on 52nd Street, where our headquarters are right now. And on Louis' deathbed, he turned to Sam and said, "Sam, never sell this property, actually buy more." And Sam did. We have a 400,000 square foot office building on 54th and an apartment building on 55th Street. So that's sort of the start of our business. Sam was really the leader of his siblings and the motivating factor in the development of Rudin Management Company. And I am fortunate to, along with my cousin Eric, be co-chairman, and I am the CEO. Eric's the president. and even really more fortunate to have both of my children, Samantha and Michael, in our business in senior management roles. And so we're a multi-generational business.
Wow.
We focus on commercial and residential properties in New York City. And that's a little of my background.
So I know which of the 22 questions I should ask first after hearing all that, Bill. Family owned, controlled business are unusual beasts, right? How do you think about strategy in the context of a family run beast as opposed to a REIT, or one of our friends is running, or a private equity where you're
Yeah.
churning? And how do you think about that?
Well, it's a great question, and we just it's kind of crazy when I think about it. We just completed our first ever strategic planning process. We had never really done that before. We meet every couple of weeks, our executive team, and we talk about short-term issues, medium-term issues, long-term issues. But we thought that it was the right moment, and inspired by my kids who are in their 30s, to really take a look at our company, where it is today, where it's been, and where it should be going in the future. So we hired a consultant, and we started this process, and we just literally completed it. I guess phase one of the process, because I don't think we're ever going to go back. We're going to have, this is a living, breathing document that we've created with a mission statement, with a vision statement, with strategies associated with responsibilities and timelines for senior management and our department managers and our entire company to get involved in this process. And it was really eye-opening. And I think we went through a lot of soul searching and had a lot of discussions. We did virtual retreats on several weekends. And we really, I think, went through a great process. And we put Samantha and Michael, my children, and several other younger members of our executive team in charge of the strategic planning committee, and they're going to continue moving this process forward. But it was a whole up and down review of how we do things, what our processes are. So we're trying to, keep that family. You asked about family. Keep that family touch to it, but really, more and more professionalize the way we do business. And you said, most family businesses, make it to the second generation, let alone the third generation. And now we're in the fourth generation. So it's gratifying. And, I don't know what the secret sauce is about communication, and, we don't always agree on everything in every process, but we sit down and we work it through. And this was a great process for all of us to go through. So, I think it's going to make our company better, more efficient. And we also really, based on a lot of input from my kids over the last several years, have made, changes within our organization, and, made personnel changes, brought in new ideas. We set up a new head of multifamily. We've readjusted our CFO, brought in a new CFO, and making changes, in all parts of our organization as we really deep dive into what works and what doesn't work.
Bill, let's segue a little bit to the topic of leadership. And by the way, I'd love you and Peter to talk a little bit more about, kind of prop tech. I know you're big in prop tech today. That happens to be a hot subject, but you're being a little self-effacing because, as I understand it, I think you guys employ over 700 people today. So you've obviously done something right.
Well, we have about 170 people in our headquarters on Park Avenue at 345, and then the rest are, people who are working in the buildings, the
Right.
foremen, the engineers,
Right.
the people who are, a front line in terms of operation of our building. But I would say at headquarters, about 175 people.
Okay. Well, still a sizable number
Yes.
of people.
Yes.
Culture is a buzzword today, and a lot of CEOs attribute a good part of their success to culture. How would you describe the culture at Rudin, and how important has that been to your success?
Well, I think the culture is critical. That really, and the fact that we've been over a year doing all of this stuff on Zoom has, I think, points out the importance of getting back into the office and having that connectivity, being able to walk around, run into Peter or you, or hey, what's going on over in this building? What's going on in this lease? With my leasing team or my finance folks, and we lose that in the world that we're living in. I think you're going to start seeing, and I saw a friend of mine on CNBC today who runs a financial service company, and he goes, we are getting everybody back. We need to get everybody back. It's culture, it's mentorship, it's productivity. So, but I think the ethos of our business has always been a family business, hands-on. You can get to a Rudin if you have a problem, but we're I think shifting in a positive way some of that culture to a more professional structure, and having the department managers and senior leaders be more responsible and take on more of the decision making process. With Eric and myself, obviously still actively involved, but giving my kids and the contemporaries around them more responsibility. And we're, I think, maternalistic and paternalistic, but you got to have to some degree hard nose and make sure everybody's being productive and trying to make sure that we're responsive to our customers, our partners, our bankers, but that culture, I think, in terms of our handshake is our bond, is a main element of people know and trust the Rudin brand, and that's been developed literally over nearly 100 years.
Wow.
Okay, so Bill, is the venture or the stepping into prop tech, is that a sideline? Is that a hobby? Is that an integrated part of the company? How does that all fit together?
No, it's definitely an integrative part of our business, and we actually, I was interesting. I was took a reporter from the Times yesterday through our new building in Brooklyn called Dock 72, and it's that building is really the culmination of all the things that we've been doing in our business, amenitizing office space, technology, outdoor space, food, wellness. We designed this building 5 or 6 years ago. We have MERV 15 filters. Like, if you asked me a few years ago what was a MERV 15 filter, what did I know? But our engineers and our architects and our team were smart enough to anticipate the need for a sustainable and healthy environment, and so we got involved in technology integration in our buildings in 1995. So if I was on a Zoom call with you in 1995 and I said to you, probably couldn't have done it because the technology didn't really exist. But if I said to you, what's broadband connectivity? You'd look at me like, what are you talking about? And so there was the head of the MIT lab, Nicholas Negroponte, in the early 90s, wrote a book called Being Digital. And in that book, on page 112, is the Smart Ready Building. And we took that as a template. We had an empty building. Drexel Burnett had gone bankrupt. Lower Manhattan had 30 million feet of vacant space. One of that, we had a 500,000, 400,000 foot office building that was 100% empty. So it was almost out of necessity that we came up with a new idea of how to wire an office building and bring connectivity to our tenants in a much more efficient and in a better way. We brought the risers up. We had the connectivity brought into the building and up into the floors, and gave tenants choice. And so I think that was really our first. Our chief operating officer, John Gilbert, came up with this idea, and the building went from 100% vacant to 100% leased in 18 months. It was just a phenomenal experience. And that led us to buy another building in Tribeca, the former AT&T headquarters, that had incredible bandwidth underneath it. We turned that into a partially telco hotel. And that led us to being co-developers with Thomson Reuters, or Reuters back in the 20 years ago. They were looking for technology, sustainability, a new building, signage in the heart of Times Square, and they brought us in as their partner. So technology and infrastructure has really been a part of our business for several decades. And so now, fast forward to about 5-6 years ago, our engineers and our team developed a building operating system. It's called Anthem. And we literally operate our office buildings on an iPhone or iPad. It provides instantaneous real-time data on building occupancy, electrical consumption, water consumption, CO2 levels. It's a brain. We never had this before. The engineers would come in at 7, turn the equipment on, and at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, turn the building off. But now we have data. We have there's a dashboard that we can see occupancy moves, and so we know at 11:30 people start going out to lunch. So guess what? We can throttle back the fan speeds in the building using machine learning algorithms and weather sensors and real-time data, and reduce the fan speeds, save electricity, and not impact comfort. And then by 1:30 or 2, we know from the data and the sensors that we have in the buildings that people start coming in. We know on Friday afternoons in the summertime at 2 o'clock, there's a significant drop in occupancy because people are going home. They're going to play golf. They're going away for the weekend. So this data has been very critical, and it's a business for us. So we have a J.P. Morgan, Brookfield, Boston Properties, and many, many others as a client. We've gone out. We have a separate company that we fund ourselves called Prescriptive Data that is creating these products. We have a tenant app that allows tenants to see occupancy in the lobby and elevators, and as people start coming onboarding back into the buildings as we go through and COVID. This will be an important part of our business. We also, several years ago, started to invest in prop tech companies that not just to invest, but to help us make our business more efficient. So we invested in Latch, which is about to go public through a SPAC, and many, many other companies. We invested in Fifth Wall, which is a preeminent fund in real estate. So we try to integrate and beta test these technologies. Some of them work, some of them don't work. Just like we did with our company, Prescriptive Data, and the product Anthem, we used ourselves as the petri dish to have proof of concept. So we continually are looking at technology, and we know that this is an important part of the future and integration within our buildings, both commercial and residential. And it really is also it's a way for us to diversify out of real estate into technology. I think you're seeing a trend all over the place in terms of real estate companies, and I think it's an important part of the future of our industry.
All got started because you had, as Claude Ballard used to say, a building unencumbered by leases.
that for several years, and we were scared what was going to happen to the rest of our portfolio in Lower Manhattan. And so, we scratched our heads for a while. We made the difficult decision, and I remember it was sort of role reversal back in the 90s because young Bill Rudin was like let's build, let's go this, let's do that. And then I realized that, that even at $18 a foot, we couldn't rent this building because Lower Manhattan was in a shambles. And I had to go and explain that to my father and uncle. And my uncle wanted to go and, start the renovation process. And so we compromised. We took the asbestos out, but it was like a total role reversal where I was saying we used the M word, mothballed the building. Like we had never done that before. So we literally, all the tenants moved out. We closed the building and we waited for the right moment in time. And the market turned around and we came up with this innovative plan. Downtown started to recover because we had worked together with the mayor and the governor to come up with the plan. And that was really a true public-private partnership. And but it was interesting dynamics. We start off with this conversation in terms of a family business, and then to go back to 1 second. So then in like 1995, I get a phone call from Carl Weisbrod, who was head of the Downtown Alliance, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Bill, we have this idea of creating a technology-oriented building. We had looked at another building. That deal had fallen through. We know you're thinking about technology. Will you take your building and reposition it and create this technology center?" And it was I'll never forget. It was a Friday afternoon, and I went into my father, my uncle's office, and I called my dad in, and I told them what was on the table, and they all said, "Okay, well, let's think about it over the weekend." The next morning, my father calls me up. He's on his way to play golf. And he said, "Bill, did you see the front page of the New York Times?" And I said, I did. And it was CompuServe, which was owned by IBM and Sears, which was an internet service provider along with early AOL connectivity company that was headquartered up in Westchester. And they announced on the front page of the Times that they're going to move from Westchester to downtown. We didn't know where downtown was. And why? Because that's where all the young people in this company, cutting edge company, wanted to work. They didn't want to work in the suburbs of Westchester. And my dad called me and said, "Did you see this?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, that's the sign. We're going to go ahead and let's go with this project." And that was a $40 million decision that, he made based on that sign from above that this was the right time to go ahead and start this project. So no market reports, no analysis. It was his gut feeling, and it turned out to be 1,000% correct.
Bill, that's a great lead into any leadership question you want to.
Totally. That's what you call good instincts, for
exactly.
sure.
Gut feel, as my dad would say.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Bill, as I understand it, you pretty much joined the company right out of school, as I understand it. What are the one or two key leadership lessons that you learned as you got promoted through the business and ultimately are now running it?
Well, I actually, I worked in summers for my family. I was on a construction site. I was in a residential leasing office. I did other things. I actually did a few other things before coming into the business full time. I came to NYU and I worked part time and went to NYU, which was a really great experience. But the one thing I regret was my grandfather, who passed away in 1975 because he thought he had ruined our family business because he built a building on 26th Street and Madison Avenue and opened 100% empty because the market had tanked. He always said to me, "Don't go to college, put a desk in my office and come and learn from the Grand Master." And I regret not doing that. But then when I started to, when I came back to New York, I had gone to college outside the city for a couple of years. So I did the best of both worlds. I was going to NYU, and then I had the opportunity to work alongside my father and uncle. And so that was just a tremendous experience for me to see, firsthand these two gentlemen who, after my grandfather passed away, took over the business and really guided us through some very, very difficult times. And just like we're going through now with the, my kids' generation, we all bring different skill sets to the conversation. My son worked at Blackstone for a summer and worked for Cushman for a summer, then did his own thing out in Aspen in terms of development. My daughter, who went to the Tisch School of the Arts, was studying to be an actress, and not an easy business. My wife one day said to me, why don't you see if Sammy wants to come and work with you? And I'm like, well, she's like an idiot, person that I was at that moment. I said, well, she doesn't, why would she want to do that? But it turned out it was the right move. She came to work, and we gave her a 6-month crash course on real estate, and she's been an integral part, along with Michael, in our company. And she focuses on design and marketing and human resources, and and along with Michael, part of this strategic planning co-leaders. So they were able to see. They didn't see my father work because he passed away in 2001, but they worked along with my uncle and now my cousin and myself. And so that I think having a mentor, having people who help you along the way, because there are a lot of bumps along the way, and giving you that confidence is really, really important. And I benefited from that, having to see my father and uncle firsthand, up close, how they did things. And then a point in time, I was able to do things and check in with them, and they felt that I had proven my myself, and kept giving me more and more responsibility. And the same with my cousin.
So you mentioned your father, obviously, a number of times. You work closely with. If I had your father and mother on the line right now, I've got good connectivity. I'm well connected, Bill.
Yes.
It's possible, right?
Hook me up on that one. Okay?
Yeah, I'll hook you up on that one. No, if I had them on the line right now and I said, what are you most proud of in Bill? What do you think they'd say?
You're gonna make me cry, but I think our kids, Ophelia and my children, their spouses, and their kids, our grandchildren. I think they would be cavelling, as we say in French, and how wonderful all of their grandchildren are. Beth has 2 wonderful kids, and she has 3 wonderful grandchildren. And I think they would be very, very proud, knowing that Samantha and Michael are very much involved in the business, and then also Carlton and Kyle are involved in our philanthropic endeavors. There are all 4 of them on our foundation boards, and the fact that they get it, that they know that that you have to give back, and that they know that they have an incredible work ethic. And I think that's what they would be, very proud of. And I think of also of Beth, my sister, and how she raised her kids, and Ophelia and I, raised our kids. And so I think that's what they're definitely smiling down about that.
Bill, if you wouldn't mind, let me follow up, and then you take the last couple of questions home. But if Bill Ferguson moves his head, you'll see his sign about integrity and generosity. And one of the questions I always like to ask people is, as you know, we're all into philanthropy. What does philanthropy mean to you? You're just talking about it, Bill. That's why I wanted to jump in here, and you can then take us home.
Philanthropy is definitely a core value of our family and our business. And my dad always said, if New York isn't doing well, then our properties aren't doing well. And when my dad created Association for a Better New York, he went to his father and said, hey, Dad, I'm going to spend more time on, public-private partnerships and getting involved with, with the city. And my grandfather said, like, how can you do that? You got to stay focused on our business. And my dad said that this is our business. We have to be engaged in the community, and we have to, make sure the streets are safe and the streets are clean, and that the institutions that are so important for the vibrancy of our city are strong and healthy. And so he and Jack really led the way in terms of being involved on many boards. And I sometimes scratch my head, like, how did they have the time to do that? And my kids are actively involved in several organizations, big and small and in between. And the same with my cousin, my cousins, my sister, and the rest of our family. It's really part of our DNA, and really critical for our business. We're one of the founding members of the New York City Marathon. I mean, it's just, somebody came up to Jack and Lou and said, this is 1976. It was going to be one time, 5-borough race to honor the bicentennial of the United States. And somebody came and said, we need $25,000. And my grandfather had just passed away, and they said, done if the trophy can be named after Sam. And every year, first it was Jack and Lou and my grandmother, then it was my generation, then it was my kids, now my grandkids, give out the trophy to the winner. And it's just, it's an incredible experience. And hopefully, knock wood, we have a race this year. We had to cancel last year, but that involvement and the spirit and the joy of what happens on that Sunday in November, you can't put a value on, a price on. And that's what we try to do, is find organizations that need help early on and get involved with them, and make sure that they're an integral part of our city. And my father and uncle and my grandfather were true urbanists. They believed in this city and the power of the city. My grandfather, when he built an office building, he built an apartment building because he always thought that the people working in the buildings would want to walk to work. He had operable windows, in office buildings, which drove his engineers crazy. But think about that today, right? You need that fresh air to deal, with COVID. And he was always, all three of them believed in the urban experience. My father drove him crazy when companies would move out of the city. And he would look, he would be so thrilled, all of them, with the Renaissance. And we've obviously gone through a little bit of a problem in the last year, but we're going to come back, just like we came back after 9/11, fiscal crisis, 2008, Sandy. We're going to come back better and stronger. And his tagline was always, never bet on New York City, or as he used to call it, his town. And they were so forward thinking in terms of, if you look at any of our real estate, there's literally either a subway stop within the building or within a few blocks, that connectivity. Our newest building, and Sam's philosophy was, if I can't get there by subway, I don't want to own it. Our new building in Brooklyn that we partner with Boston Properties is really connected 15, 20 feet to the New York City ferry system. And so it's a little bit different type of mode of transportation, but it still has that connectivity. And so, we've adapted and we're changing. And just like we start off this conversation about the strategic review, this city is always going through a strategic review and adapting diversification of its tenant base. It used to be in Lower Manhattan in the mid-90s. It was 70% financial service, 30% others. Today, it's totally opposite. It's 30% financial service and 70% TAMI, education, architecture, advertising, etc. So we have to continue to adapt and reinvent ourselves. And that's what leadership is about, in knowing how to navigate through difficult times, right? So we've gone through that. And during this period, just, to finish up, we decided to commit to, just like back in 1995 on that weekend, my cousin, myself, my kids, and our senior team, we moved forward with two major projects. Reimagining of a building in Lower Manhattan, 80 Pine Street, that was built in the late 50s, early 60s. We lost several large tenants last year. And then at 3 Times Square, where we have a major lease turnover also. And these are several $100 million of investments with new lobbies, new technology, new infrastructure, new signage for 3 Times Square. But we saw through, and we could have stopped construction on 80 Pine Street. We had already started before COVID, and there was a pause, but we kept moving forward. And we started planning 3 Times Square last year. We started the work now because we know somewhere along the line that market's going to turn around, and we want to be ready for those tenants who want to have quality space with a Rudin brand type of building, infrastructure, great locations, transportation. So we're going to keep playing it forward.
So Bill, I'll let you take us home.
Yep. One last question, Bill, but an observation. As Peter and I have interviewed other leaders, whether it's John Gray or Chris Nassetta, Roy March, there's a common theme that comes back when Peter asks that question about getting on the phone with mom and dad. And virtually to the person, they've talked about their families. And there's a powerful message about that and the correlation with leadership. So, well, to wrap it up, Bill, I'm sure you have many sessions with your son and your daughter talking about the future of the business and anticipating eventually that they may take it over in addition to some other family members. What words of wisdom do you provide them as they think about stepping up and running the business?
They give me the words of wisdom.
They listen?
They have the answers. Seriously, it's just to be themselves, and because they have the instinct, they have that. My dad always talked about it. You can immediately tell when you throw somebody a ball and how they catch it and throw it back. Do they have they have the right stuff? And these kids have it, and they've along with my cousin, have really filled in and created an incredible team around them to help them as they move forward. And so the only word I think philosophy is to be themselves, and how do you somebody retired and sent us a note that they were going to retire. My daughter and son immediately sent them this person's been with us for over 30 years. This incredible email saying how amazing it was to be working with them and what they had done for the company, and we're going to miss them. And I don't know how I don't think you really teach somebody that. That's coming from inside themselves, and they took the time and effort to acknowledge what this person had done, and she made the decision. She was the right time for her to retire. But I think it's just the general exposure they've gotten, being in the company, and just how Ophelia and I brought them up, and what their I'll never forget it. At 9/11, my son was up in school in Riverdale, so he couldn't come back. He had to go up to a friend's house. But our daughter was at school on the Upper East Side. She wanted to go downtown. And I'm like, no, you can't go downtown. It's a high school student. She wanted to go downtown and be, find a way to be helpful. And I don't know. I think we're lucky. It's very, very lucky that we have this next generation to move the business forward. And with their, we had this, in my generation, we brought our input in, and the senior members had their input, and we came together, and it's sort of old school meets new school. I think the same thing's happening now, but at a quicker pace, and their beliefs and where they see the company going is very, very impressive, and I think that's why Eric and I have been so supportive of them and made them in charge of this strategic planning process. And they're just getting started, and this is going to continue. And I think that's the key thing in leadership is to know. And my father was great at this. He knew when to step back and let me run with the ball, and that gave me confidence to know that I could pick up the phone or call him or have a quick discussion about this deal or that deal or financing, whatever. And okay, good, go ahead, that's great. And I think that's the same with my kids. They know that we're here. They come to us when they when they need to make the big call, but they're integrally involved in running this business, and it's just fantastic to see that.
Don't hand over the reins too soon to them. The industry and all of us need you.
Somebody in my company said,
Bill, you want to wrap this up?
I said, do you know me? But there's plenty to do. There's plenty of things around to, and luckily, again, with Roundtable, with Rebney, with Abney, with, I had the confidence that I could, just like my father did, he had his brother there to deal with, some of the nitty gritty day-to-day stuff that needs to get done in a business. So I was lucky. I have that great support staff, and I'm not going anywhere so fast, but I do enjoy sneaking off, picking up my grandkids at school and taking them to the playground or watching them play sports, and that's the elixir that keeps me going, and seeing them develop, as they get older and start spreading their wings. So, but thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and I wish you guys good luck. And happy to come back again if probably it's a lot of fun to talk about.
Thank you.
Our business, and can't wait to see my friends, John and Roy and all the others, and hear what they've got to say. But this was a lot of fun.
Well, Bill, thank you. As you said, the bottom line is you can't teach this stuff. Either you got it or you don't. And it sounds like your family's had it in spades. So congratulations.